Good morning, everyone. On a day of two services being held at this church, the second one I'll mention in a second, I'm very happy you're all here for the first one, so thank you all. If you're visiting us today, my name is Reverend Emily Bruce. I'm the minister of this congregation, and I welcome you here to First Parish this morning. As Unitarian Universalists, we are a people of diverse beliefs, but we share a common faith, a faith that every person is worthy of love, that what we do in and for this world matters, that we are connected by an interdependent web to one another and to our earth. So whoever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. In a moment, we will light our chalice, but as always, I have a few quick announcements. First, I'm delighted doesn't even describe it, but I am delighted to invite my dear friend, the Reverend Lisa Garcia-Sampson, here to preach for us this morning. Lisa is the executive director of UU Justice North Carolina and is a dear, dear friend of mine. We discerned our callings to ministry together. We were friends that met at the Unitarian Church in Providence. So she's a dear friend and she's an amazing preacher, and I'm very happy that you get to hear her today. So thank you, Lisa, for being with us. I also want to offer a huge thank you to the team who did our golf fundraiser yesterday. Yes, let's give a round for Barry Mathias, Carmen Gart, Connie Delano, Cindy Levine, and Bob Erlandson. I think, Barry, you're the only one here this morning. Oh, Christina's here, sorry, and Christina. My apologies. But this was a new fundraiser that they launched and planned and executed yesterday. It went really, really well, and I'm so grateful for all the hard work you did, so thank you very much. Finally, as most of you already know, but in case you don't, today at 4 o'clock will be the service to officially install me as your settled minister. Yay! I am excited too. So today here at 4 o'clock, even if you didn't RSVP, you are welcome. I know we sent out that RSVP email several times, but you're welcome. It's today at 4 o'clock, and then there'll be a reception following in Sampson Hall across the street. So all are welcome. And now I invite you to join me in taking a deep breath in and out. Let your mind rest, let your heart rest. Let your soul rest in this space. Put your phone down, put your to-do list down, and loosen any tension you might feel in your jaw or your neck. Join me in taking another deep breath in and out. Give yourself the gift of rest in this space with us for the next hour. And I invite Lisa up to help me light our chalice. This morning, we light our chalice with these words by Reverend Elizabeth Strong. Our Unitarian heritage bids us light our chalice in the name of freedom, in the light of reason, in actions of tolerance. We gather in community to celebrate a heritage of freedom, reason, and tolerance. Our Universalist heritage bids us light our chalice in the name of faith, in the name of hope, and in actions of love. We gather in community to celebrate a heritage of faith, hope, and love. And let us bring this Unitarian Universalist heritage into our world and all of our lives today. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, number 295, Sing Out Praises in the gray hymnal.
Like
As we enter into our time of prayer and meditation, I invite you all to join me in singing side 1 of May Love Be Your Guide. There should be a white card in your pew. We'll sing side 1 together. Friends, thank you as always for sharing the joys and concerns on your heart with us this morning. And amidst all the concerns of our daily lives, I know that our hearts are heavy this morning with grief for the violence and the suffering in Israel and Palestine. So I'm going to devote my prayer to that situation this morning. And I share words actually inspired by and adapted from Rabbi Sheila Weinberg from Amherst, Massachusetts, Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis from the Middle Church in New York City, Dr. Salih Kolaki from Los Angeles, and our own UUA president, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. Their public prayers were blended into one prayer by my colleague, the Reverend Kevin Jago, and they speak to my heart this morning and say words that I feel like I couldn't even say them this beautifully. So I hope they will speak to yours. Let us join our hearts in prayer with the millions praying around the globe this morning. Holy One, you of many names and no name at all. To love one another may sound simple, but in moments of violence, it is a practice of deep faith and deeper conviction. May we remember the interdependence of our paths and our lives as we call our collective attention to this violent moment. May we acknowledge this moment is not isolated from history or context. 2 peoples, 1 land, 3 faiths, 1 root, 1 earth, 1 mother, 1 sky, 1 beginning, 1 future, 1 destiny, 1 broken heart, 1 God, 1 love, 1 humanity. We set our attention on those who have died, those who have lost loved ones, and those who are in danger in this very moment. May we see the many in the one and the one in the many. Guide us gently and firmly toward each other, toward peace. Violence is not conditional. You cannot kill people and kidnap children, then point to circumstances to say that this isn't truly violent. Freedom is not conditional. You cannot wall people in, prohibit their departure, subject them to random attacks, and then say that they are free. May we advocate for paths to less violence and greater freedom. May we not allow grief and anger to erase another's humanity. For Islam teaches peace. For Judaism teaches repair. For Christianity teaches love. Our own Unitarian Universalism teaches justice. All religious traditions call us toward these themes and to nonviolence when not warped into tools of war. We are one global family living tenuously on the same human-impacted earth. To love one another may sound simple, but in moments of violence, it is a practice of deep faith and deeper conviction. May our minds create a vision of the world radical enough to be called holy. May our actions contain the promises of hope and the commitments to justice. May our hearts remember that love is a power that resists all forms of fear. By our thoughts, by our actions, by our hearts, and by our very breath. May it be so. Amen. Let us hold a few moments together in silence. Now please join me in singing side 2 of May Love Be Your Guide. When we give, we say yes to something we value. In this congregation, we take up an offering each week to say yes to the values of our UU faith and yes to this beloved community. Today's offering will be gratefully received. Our offering song is Blowin' in the Wind by Bob Dylan, sung by Paula Fisher.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? How many years can one person have before they hear people cry? How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Thank you, Paula. Our reading this morning is entitled Prerequisites for Preservation by Naima Penniman. We're going to need to get organized, live beyond boundaries, soften our hearts, talk to each other. We're going to need to leave behind our baggage, relinquish our control, release our comfort, coexist. We're going to need to give up our addictions, confront our pain, ask for help, give more than we take. We're going to need to dream bigger, work harder, get dirty, and take time. We're going to need to remember. We're going to need to forgive. We're going to need to let go. We're going to need to let go. We're going to need to feel fully, revive our intuition, make up our minds, enact change. We're going to need to look at ourselves, reconcile our ignorance, sacrifice shame, make amends. We're going to need less, peel away the non-essential, go hungry, break a sweat. We're going to need to heal our fears, tell our secrets, share with our enemies, love ourselves. We're going to need to study existence, refine our dreams, mediate our shadows, and cure our disbelief. We're going to need to practice magic. We're going to need to cherish water. We're going to need to grieve. We're going to need to move on. We're going to need to stay focused. We're going to need to be strong, tend our commitment to beauty, fuel our devotion to truth. We're going to need to pray. We're going to need to follow through, endure burning. We're going to need to surrender. We're going to need to trust. We're going to need to give light. We're going to give light. We are light. We are.
Good morning. It is such a joy to be with you all here this morning on this special day. I would not have missed it for the world. Again, my name is Reverend Lisa Garcia-Sampson. I proudly serve as the Executive Director of the Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry of North Carolina. And we work with over 26 UU congregations across the state with the mission of joyfully organizing UUs to co-create a transformative movement for justice through spiritual grounding, collaboration, and imagination. We support congregations in their justice work, work in close relationship with our national UU partners like Side with Love, and we are uniquely positioned to work at a state level and organize UUs to contribute to statewide campaigns and movements for justice. We are a sibling of your own UU Mass Action, to give you some context. Recently, my job afforded me the opportunity to be in conversation with someone I never imagined I'd be on a first-name basis with, one of the most prophetic voices in our faith today, the incredible Paula Cole-Jones. And whenever I talk to her, I try to play it cool, but if I'm honest, I'm always a little starstruck. Anybody here have like a UU celebrity you got a little crush on? So we're on the phone, it's pretty late at night, it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And we're talking about the anti-racism workshop that she was doing for us, and we're talking about the devastating legislation that occurred in this past year in North Carolina, a monster abortion ban bill that further restricted abortion not only in North Carolina but across the South. The attacks on trans youth, the reality that the minimum wage in our state remains $7.25. We're having this conversation and suddenly out of the blue, she suddenly stopped and said, "Lisa, are you outside?" And I was outside, I was walking my dog. And I immediately apologized, thinking she couldn't hear me over the cars. Oh my gosh, this is Paula Cole-Jones, how rude. And she said, no, Lisa, that's not what I'm talking about. She said, "Lisa, look up at the moon." And I did. And it was such a simple thing. I looked up. And then something happened. After a really hard week when I was so wrapped up in my own situation, the act pulled me out of my head and into a larger consciousness. We spent a few minutes just raptured by the crescent moon. We shared how beautiful it feels to be two people separated by hundreds of miles, but looking at that same moon, and we imagined how many people on our planet at that very moment were looking up at that moon, discerning their work for justice in this time in our history. It made me feel so small and yet so deeply connected to this abundant, loving movement, larger than our state, larger than our faith, larger than we can even imagine. And it reminded me of something that had just occurred the day before. That week I had been in Wilmington, North Carolina, as the movement chaplain for a community safety training. It's something we do across the state 5 or 6 times a year. This 2-day training is no joke. It's for people working to keep our movement safe at abortion clinics, drag story hours, voting sites, churches, school board meetings, and all the places where extremist groups are creating real safety threats in our state. We had 2 UU churches there that day learning about de-escalation, awareness of weapons, how to wash people's eyes out after they'd been pepper sprayed, and some members of our UU congregation were from the Morehead City Church, and they were there at a time when their congregation was discerning how visible they should be as a beacon of progressive values in a very conservative small town. Something being discerned by UU congregations across the country. Amen? During one of the breaks for this training, I checked in with the Morehead City minister, Reverend Micah, to see how things were going, and they said that their congregants had come to equip themselves with the skills to keep their community safe from real threats in case they were ever targeted for doing something radical like hanging up a progress flag or hosting a drag story hour. But Micah said it was a powerful thing that they were discerning a call to courage and recognizing that the danger that they were choosing to lean into is for many not a choice, but an inescapable reality. But Micah said that by far the most important thing that they were learning that weekend was not the skills or awareness of their privilege, but the realization that they were not in this alone. For the first time, these leaders of this congregation looked around the room, not only at fellow UUs, but at the larger beloved community in North Carolina, and viscerally understood that they belong to a larger movement for justice that has their back too. There was a sense in which that was their looking up at the moon moment. Their realization that they are not only accountable to the larger interconnected web, but that they can access the love and power and wisdom of that web. And the thing I want to point out here is something that I have experienced over and over in my ministry, is that our capacity for courage is deeply tied to the depth of our connection to that which is greater than us. We are undoubtedly living through a moment where we are all being called to courage, both within and outside the walls of our congregations. So don't forget to look up at the moon. And know that the abundant love and power of this sacred web is here to sustain you and to guide you. On Tuesday of that same week, I was at my monthly art club for local justice organizers in Durham, North Carolina, to explore our work through creative expression. My watercolors are terrible, but that's not the point. It's led by the Jewish Studio Project and always begins with a Jewish text study, and that is the second time that week that the moon came to me with a lesson. The text study was about a particular week in the Jewish calendar, and specifically the holy day of Shavuot, which marks the occasion when the Israelites were journeying through the wilderness in the darkest of nights, when Moses went up to the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments. This is a story I know pretty well, maybe you do too, but what struck me on that day was the reference to the moon. You see, it was the third new moon since they had escaped from Egypt, and the new moon is the darkest point in the moon's cycle because it is the moment when the moon is in conjunction with the sun and its dark side is toward the earth. For all of you Pink Floyd fans out there, it is literally the dark side of the moon. I was struck by this because the story reminds us that we are called to have faith that in the darkest, scariest moments in the wilderness, we can give birth to something new. And the new moon reminds us that our world is ever turning, ever unfolding, and that change is revelation. That change is itself sacred. That is the wisdom of our earth-centered and astrological and Eastern religions, and it is a core truth of our own living tradition of Unitarian Universalism. And we have seen over the last 4 years, we have been through the dark night, and new revelations have come. And our UU faith has been changed. In 2020, UU the Vote became the largest activation of UUs in the history of our faith. New technology brought us into deeper relationship with our justice partners and with fellow UUs across the country. Our president at the time, Susan Frederick Gray, set the bold aspiration of us reaching out to 1 million people in 2020. And even she admittedly was nervous about saying that goal out loud. Making such an audacious goal for such a small faith like ours. Many felt a little uneasy and questioned that goal. Turns out we were right to question that goal. Because by October of 2020, we had reached out to 3 million people. That is the power of our faith. That moment pushed us to interrogate the limits of our imagination for what is possible, for what we are capable of. And last year, that work continued in North Carolina. In our 2022 UU the Vote campaign, 22 UU congregations across North Carolina came together to make over 36,000 phone calls and write over 34,000 postcards to voters of color in our state in deep partnership with Carolina Jews for Justice, Reclaim Our Vote, New North Carolina Project. I know that some of y'all also wrote some postcards over the last years. Raise your hand if anybody here participated in the postcarding campaign. And our work for democracy has also sparked a massive activation of UUs across our state in North Carolina, protecting our movement from extremist groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. Recently, I was in Wilmington alongside UUs and movement partners for a school board meeting where they were discussing banning the book Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America by Ibram X. Kendi. These new Hanover County School Board meetings have become a place where the Proud Boys show up in massive numbers to intimidate anyone advocating for progressive values. Recently, that included them loudly taunting trans youth as they testified to the school board about the challenges they experienced in school. Yeah, take that in. And whether it's because of the political alignment or the fear of this group, the school board and the police did nothing to stop these bullies. Let them keep heckling children. But on that Tuesday, the people of Wilmington did, turning out over 300 members of their community, including 50 UUs in a congregation of 150. To show up before the school board meeting for a Let Freedom Read rally. As a member of the safety team there, we drove in to join the safety crew on the ground monitoring the perimeter of this rally, and when necessary, be ready to de-escalate. I know I'm not your classic safety person. I'm 4'11", and sometimes I'm confused for a child, but Sometimes it's helpful, in fact. I was on the crew facing the woods because, no joke, because the Proud Boys like to emerge out of the woods when they come to these school board meetings, wearing their brass knuckles and bandanas over their faces to create an even more intimidating effect. And they had been showing up time and time and time and time again for months. But guess what? On that day, with 300 members of the Wilmington community ready for them for the first time in a long time, the Proud Boys did not emerge from the woods. Local leaders strongly believed that the massive number of Wilmington residents, loud and strong, proclaiming their values, kept the Proud Boys at home that day. And when it started to lightning and torrentially rain, the crowd still stayed, huddling under the overhang of the building, soaking wet, shoulder to shoulder, and kept chanting and chanting, "Let freedom read," until they were finally let into the building for the school board meeting. In communities across our state, across our country, we are finding our courage. We are finding our power, and we are learning what it means to be in this for the long haul. And one thing I want to point out is that it's not just about fighting against. This movement is about the act of creation. Last month, our UU Justice NC network celebrated the biggest win we have ever been a part of in our state. 12 years too late, but finally, the passage of Medicaid expansion in North Carolina, expanding healthcare to over 600,000 people in our state. This was a decade-long fight, and people kept telling us that it was never going to happen. But together, our Medicaid expansion movement, including UUs across the state, spanning generations and racial identities in every nook and cranny of our state, kept fighting, kept believing that this day was possible. And finally, that day is here. That is what I call faith in action, living into our power, and we are just getting started. And all of this movement, not only in North Carolina, but across the South, across our country, has informed the evolution of our Unitarian Universalist theology, bringing us into deeper understanding of our collective liberation and the personal spiritual transformation that it requires. Friends, we are in a new moon moment. And as people of faith, we are each called to navigate the anxiety and fear and grief that comes with change and be open to the sacred possibilities of liberation. Finally, like the new moon, the full moon also offers us deep wisdom. It is the moment when the sun illuminates the entire moon, making her the brightest and largest object in the night sky. That big, bright sphere reminds us that we are not meant to just survive in the wilderness. We are meant to dance under the light of the moon. One final story. I moved to North Carolina in 2019 after living in Rhode Island for pretty much my entire life. And when I first moved to the South and took over our state justice ministry in North Carolina, I felt very insecure about my role in the movement, particularly because joy has always been the deepest instinct of my spirit. It is a core part of my identity and my ministry, but I worried that leading with joy was inappropriate in this time of such fear and pain and loss. I was worried that it would be experienced as a disregard or a privileged avoidance of these realities, and let's tell the truth about how many times our faith has made that mistake over the centuries. But this is what the movement in North Carolina has taught me that, if I'm honest, New England never did. As the poet Toy Derricott says, joy is an act of resistance. Joy is not counter to the movement, it is the purpose of the movement. Love and joy and rest and abundance, these are the things we are fighting for. And so these are the things we should be fighting with. That is the difference between a movement centered in the act of fighting against versus a movement grounded in the act of creation. A movement that is loving and life-giving and, dare I say it, irresistible. This abundant love is the source that sustains us. It is the beacon in the night sky that guides us. So nourish it. Nourish your spirit and open yourselves to receive every blessing this world offers to you. Know that it is your birthright. And know that as people of faith, we are called to use that transformative power of love to help co-create a world where that birthright can be claimed by all. Friends, may we remember that we are held in the beloved community more loving and more powerful than we can even imagine. May we have faith that the darkest moments can give birth to something sacred and new. And if we ever feel alone, may we simply remember to look up at the moon. Amen. Please rise now in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. Our benediction this morning is from a dear friend, the Reverend Ashley Horan. We say it again and again, even when the proof lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. A new world is possible. Not somewhere else, another world, another lifetime, but here and now, for us and for all. In this time of despair, of fear, of collapse, this time is both like every other era and like no other time in history. It is audacious to declare our faith, but we are an audacious people, in good company, with many kin, and we are ready to show up and work hard and stay humble and make friends and hold the vision, starting here, now, today, with us, and persevering however long it takes, until that other world is not only possible, but another world is here. Amen.